discussion. Welcome. And we can also, when I prepared the workshop, I was thinking, can I ask the people where they are from and so on? Is that wise because of time limits? But now we can do it, I guess. But first, I will pray, and then I will introduce myself. So you can stand, please, or wherever you are. Father in heaven, I thank you for this Congress, for this morning, that you have promised to be with us. And as we think here about how to use stories or how to reach young people, how to communicate the gospel to them, I ask that you bless us in our time together. In your name I pray. Amen. Okay. So I'm a bit proud because Mickey was not in the booklet, but I am in the booklet. I made it. My name is Sven, and you can read the details of my life in that booklet. What you cannot see in there is a picture of my wife. So I brought you a picture. Here you see us. We met, and that's why I'm showing the picture, because the Anion project we did together. And so she should be here, but we have 2 kids now. I brought a picture of them too. So she is with our 2 boys at the moment, and she sent me and said, "You go do it. You tell about the project." We met in Bogenhofen. We studied theology there in Austria, and she was working as a chaplain also for the girls there, and she was giving. Yeah, come in. No problem. Do come in. She was giving a lot of Bible studies to the young girls there. I think 50 or 60 of them she worked with and prepared for baptism. So that's her background. Then we went from Bogenhofen to Andrews together, and we studied there for our masters. She had her masters in religious education, so she's more the pedagogical one, or the one who has a strategy or for communicating, for forming, spiritual formation, you would call it, I guess. And I did an MA in systematic theology. Then we pastored, both of us, near Stuttgart. We're very close to where we are at the moment, here in Germany, for 4 years. Well, not quite. My wife got pregnant then, our 2 boys were born, but we also worked with the youth there, and then I switched to the personal ministries department of the South German Union, so the mission department. And from there, we moved 2 years ago to the media center, Stimme der Hoffnung, which is where the German Hope Channel is produced, and I'm in charge there of the Bible Correspondence School. So I'm telling people through letters and emails about the gospel and trying to communicate to them. And this project, Anion, I will tell you a little bit about it later, was born when we came to the media center around that time. And I think at first I was very skeptical about the whole approach, Book of Revelation, and so on. But now, looking back, I think it is a pretty cool project. So when Stefan Sick asked me, would you talk about it? First I thought, no, that's not worth it. But then after a while I figured, well, maybe we can learn something. So, but enough about me. I think we can take a few minutes to have each of one just say a sentence, your name, where you're from, what you're doing, so we know who we are in this group. If you don't like it, you can just say I pass. But maybe Fabian, you could start.
Oh, wow.
First row.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Fabian from Switzerland. I'm a father of 2 kids. That's what I'm doing. And my wife is at home with 2 kids. We stay also in Bogenhofen, but we didn't meet us in Bogenhofen, my wife and I. We go together to Bogenhofen. It's different. And I'm the youth director from Switzerland, from the German part.
Oh, my name is Alessandro and I'm from Portugal,
Mm-hmm.
south of Portugal. It's a
Oh,
different climate.
Yes.
It's very different. And I am a pastor there.
Okay, okay.
Me? Okay, me. You know?
Yeah, we just go rows, okay?
I'm Rafael. I also come from Switzerland, but from the French speaking.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm a pastor there too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And involved in the youth ministry
Oh,
and the communication department.
Oh, wow. That's good. That's good. Okay.
I'm Claudio. I'm from Italy, from the northern part of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I am 24 years old and I'm a student now.
Okay.
And I work with the youth department
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
during events or something.
What do you study?
Economics.
Okay.
Marketing and economics.
Wow.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm from Mauritius Island, but I live in South Italy, in Sicily, with my
Oh.
husband and daughter. She's 4 years old. And me and my husband, we are a youth leader in
Oh,
our
okay.
church.
Wow.
So
Good, good. Welcome.
I'm Aurora Rashu.
Okay.
I'm from Romania,
Mm-hmm.
but I study in France.
Okay.
I don't speak very well English, but I speak French.
Oh, that's
Uh,
harder.
I have PhD
Oh,
in Montpellier,
okay.
south of France, and
What are you studying? or in-
communication.
Wow. Okay.
I am with my husband in France,
Mm-hmm.
and I am youth leader. Also.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
I'm Andrea. I'm 29 years old. I'm the youth leader of our church
Mm-hmm.
near to Frankfurt. Yeah, and I was baptized last year, so it's
Oh.
the first congress. It's
Huh.
very so
Welcome.
My name is Flori.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a pastor in Romania.
Okay.
I'm from Germany. I'm pastor in
Good. Wow. I'm glad you came. I'm also a bit intimidated. PhD in communication. Well, good. Let's look at a brief outline of what I hope to talk about in this workshop. First, I want to speak about a narrative approach to the book of Revelation, because the Anion project is about Revelation, and I will just explain our thoughts and also the process, how we arrived at the approach we took to communicating the book of Revelation. Then I would like to give you a brief insight into the project. So, I mean, it is a TV series, so it's not just us writing something, but there's also a lot more going on. And I would just like to show you some pictures, and so you can see how this whole thing developed, and what the product looked like in the end also, and how the story is continuing as we speak, the Anion story. And then at the end, I would just like to draw a few lessons for youth ministry. And this is the part where we can hopefully start a discussion, because my perspective now, of course, is from the media center, not so much from the local church or the youth director. But I think we can, if we put our minds together, we can enrich what I have prepared and hopefully take something away from this time. Okay, so the Anion project, the task that we were given when we arrived at the media center, my wife and I, they approached us and they said, we would like you to present the book of Revelation in an easy and engaging way. So I don't know how familiar you are with the book of Revelation, but it's not something easy. Yeah. And sometimes it's not even engaging. And in addition, my first reaction was, of course, whoa. I mean, I'm not an expert on Revelation. In fact, I'm critical of most experts on Revelation. You know, all these, I'm not talking about scholars, but there are some church members who read only the book of Revelation, and then there are some evangelists who can tell you every detail. And I was always a little bit skeptical and think maybe we are going too far in some places. And now they want me to talk about the book. Yeah? And if you talk about Revelation in the Adventist Church, I mean, you can only annoy people. I mean, if you mention the Pope, one group is annoyed. If you don't mention the Pope, the other group is annoyed. So, yeah, whatever you do, somebody will be angry with you. So it wasn't really a very promising project. In addition, my wife, she likes the book a bit more because of growing up in Austria, and her parents came to the church also through Revelation and prophetic seminars and so on. So she has a history with the book, but she also wouldn't call herself an expert really on the book. So yeah, but they said do it in an easy and engaging way, and they said do it for a younger audience, postmodern, you know, and somehow they threw in the word existential, which is kind of a very fancy word, do an existential approach, whatever that means, you know. Yeah, so you throw in something existential, that's good, I guess. And the best thing was, I forgot to say, the best thing was that we were asked only to be the presenters in the beginning. So someone else was going to write it and the content, and then we should present it somehow in an existential way and in an engaging way. Yeah. And so I thought this is not a good idea. I'm not an expert on Revelation. I'm not a good actor. So we said no at first, but we suggested another approach. We said, well, if we could write our own scripts, and if we had the freedom to choose the content that we are going to present, because they had one show planned for chapter 1, one show for chapter 2, one show for chapter 3, and so on, you know, and I don't know how that could be engaging, but anyway. So they gave us the freedom and said, yeah, you can do your own approach. You can try whatever you want. And so after many evenings of discussion with my wife, and many fights also with the people at the media center, and misunderstandings, maybe not fights, but you think this is the idea and they don't get it, and they think you don't get it, and they produced trailers which were really horrible. But that's more also in the second part, yeah. And it didn't have any content of the series, but they had already a trailer for it. So yeah, but this is the approach that we came up with, and it was hard. So I hope if you don't like it, don't say it, because my wife and I, we struggled. You know, we have 2 sons. You saw them, and who has kids here? You have kids, yeah. So if you have 2 little kids, then in the evening when you have wrestled them down and they finally sleep and you are like zombies, you feel like you're really slowly moving, and then you have to sit down and figure out an engaging way to present the revelation. So that was really a struggle. Engaging postmodern existential. Here we go. Our first decision was that we are going to be subjective. So we would write our own script, of course. But subjective means for me more than that. It means that we decided to talk about what was important to us in the book of Revelation. And usually if you talk about Revelation, you have people expect you to explain a lot. It's not what is important to us, but they want to, like Japhet said, we love to crack the code. So. But we decided we'll leave all that code cracking and we'll talk about what matters to us, and I will come back to that later. But I believe through the subjective approach, that's where the existential element comes in, and you will have to judge if we succeeded at that. Yeah, this was the first thing we decided. We are going to be subjective in our approach, and we are going to condense the book. So the second decision was to resist the temptation to try to explain everything. Because there are, I mean, if you read Revelation, there are tons of questions. I mean, I think even the experts on the book will agree that there are a lot of things that are hard to understand, and that for us, at least in our time and culture, are not a natural way of expressing something. So we said we have to distill, for this television format, we have to distill the essence of the book and condense the content down. What is the grand theme of the book? What is the underlying motive that runs through every page, that you have to understand in order to understand the book? That was our question and our goal. So we wanted to narrow it down. I mean, what would you think? What is the basic underlying theme of the book of Revelation? It's not so easy. Have any intuitive idea? Jesus, okay, yeah. I mean, that's probably right for the whole Bible. But it's like in Sabbath school. You're never wrong when you say Jesus. You know this joke where the pastor tells the story and he says, what is it? It jumps from tree to tree and it has like a big bushy tail. And the child, it sounds like a squirrel, but the answer is Jesus. Because the answer is always Jesus, you know. But sorry, that was not what you were saying. I wasn't making fun of you.
No, that's all right. I was only picking on the first opening line.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. Revelation of Jesus. Usually say the revelation of John, right? But it's the revelation of Jesus, yes? Yes. And we would agree with that. So what we came up with is, yes, it's about Jesus. Any other thoughts? Hope, okay. Which is also already a second step, because you don't see hope everywhere. But I would agree with that too, yes, yes. Sorry, what was that about? Okay. Yeah, so the sacrifice, salvation. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. That's where the hope comes from, right? Salvation, second coming.
I think behind the curtains, or it's about whatever's happening behind the curtains, Jesus, God is in control of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is actually the message of the first part of the series. There's something going on behind the curtain. God is there. Yeah. So what we came up with, we said we think the underlying theme is about Jesus and about salvation and the hope, this hope is made possible through a controversy that is going on. Because you don't have only Jesus there, yeah? You have all these scary animals and you have the other side. But it's not about that. I think sometimes we have focused too much about that. So I liked what you said. God is in control, but still, God is doing something. God is fighting, maybe, if you want to use kind of military language. There is a great controversy between good and evil. And I think that is, if you understand that there is something going on behind the curtain, that God is struggling or acting in order to save us, to give us hope, then I think you have a basis for understanding the book and understanding also the maybe difficult parts. And this could be a framework. At least that was our solution. We tried to distill it down, and we focused on the fact, okay, there are two great powers. The battle is coming to an end, so there's the second coming. And we as humans, or you as an individual, have somehow gotten caught in the middle of it. That was kind of what we what we decided to reduce it to, the message. Yeah. So there's a battle going on. It's coming to an end, and you are a part of it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we decided to be subjective. We decided to narrow it down, and we also decided to try and make it narrative. This is also like a fashionable word, existential narrative preaching. But we wanted to attempt at least to storify the book of Revelation, if that is a word, to tell a story, and not go into this symbol it's also almost mathematical. You know, you have a lot of equations. So the first seal is this, the second seal is this, and if you add this verse to this verse, equation gives you the the patience of the saints and the testimony of Jesus. But the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. You get it. And we said, no, we will try to tell a story. We will try to tell the great controversy story. Now, how could you do this without jumping from text to text and making it a Bible seminar? I mean, it was supposed to be a Revelation series. And so we decided to skip the first half of the book. But we had to be subjective, and we had to be selective. And we decided to jump in to chapter 12. And if you have a Bible, you can open it, but I can also tell you that is the chapter where John sees the woman standing on the moon, clothed in the sun, and then she's about to give birth, you know, and the dragon comes and fights, and the child, which is Jesus, I guess, is taken away to the heavens, and the dragon fights the woman. And so we thought, okay, I mean, from our traditional understanding, we have Jesus here, we have the battle here, we have his opponent, but we also have humanity, we have the church, out of which Jesus comes, or God's people, or whatever you want to call it. So basically, there is a battle going on, and you are in between, in the middle of it. That's what we found in chapter 12. Yeah. And then we went from there, and we tried to tell the story of this battle, of the child, the story of the child, the story of the dragon, the story of the woman. That was our approach. And we went through chapter 13. What happens there? You know, the dragon is pursuing the woman and the remnants of the woman. Then we went to chapter 14, the lamb, and also the proclamation of judgment, our Adventist three angels message. Then we jumped a little bit again to chapter 18. So we skipped the 7 angels and the 7 plagues. And we went to Babylon, where this struggle kind of comes to an end. The earthly powers that the dragon kind of used here in another picture is used, not the animals, but Babylon. And Babylon is then destroyed. And of course, then we have the new heaven and the new earth, and chapter 21, the final solution of this battle, of this conflict. Yeah. So we decided to have 10 steps, and I will show you this. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. So this is how we approached the book of Revelation, or what we condensed the book of Revelation down to. The first thing was basically there is a struggle going on. So behind the curtain, God is active trying to save us. There is more than meets the eye. That is maybe what you could reduce it to. There is more than meets the eye. And we tried also to tell what this means to us, why this is important. I said we would be subjective. So for me, that there is a God and that there's more than science can measure, gives our lives meaning. Without God, there is no meaning. I will go through it. You don't have to read it all now. Without explanation, it's only confusing. So I will focus now on the first two lines. So the war, there is something going on behind the scenes, and that gives our lives meaning. That was our message. Then, okay, there is this battle. Who is fighting? First, the dragon. And then we try to tell the story of the dragon. And we did go back, because the Revelation goes back. I mean, you can't help it. If you read chapter 12, he is called the old serpent or the old snake and so on. So there is an allusion, a strong allusion to the Old Testament. And so we went back and we looked a little bit at Genesis, and we talked about trust or distrust as the problem of the dragon and how that matters to us today. How can we trust each other or God? And then the son of the woman, the child that is being born. And the question there was the question of how do you win a battle that is not about land and that is not about money or riches, but about human hearts or human beings? And the answer is through character, through revealing and opening yourself. Because if you look at the scene, it's quite strange that the one who is coming to fight the dragon is like a small child, and they proclaim he is the one who will rule with the iron scepter, but it's a small child. I mean, he doesn't stand a chance in a battle for power, in a usual battle, but it's not a battle for supremacy or for territory. It's a battle for human beings. So this is about character, about God's character. Then the woman, okay, this is humanity. We have Satan, we have Jesus. Now it's us. We are in the middle of it, and we have to decide. Because in this battle there is no neutral zone. This was kind of the message of the fourth. And then we move on. Okay, then we go to the throne. It would take a little bit longer to explain this. We take actually a passage from Revelation 4 and 5 here for the throne and the Lamb. I mean, we have the lamp in chapter 14, and then we jump back to chapter 4 and bring that into, and then chapter 5, which the throne, it is about identity. Who do you worship? Whatever you worship defines who you are. And then the Lamb, that is about guilt or redemption, of course. The beast, then this where we come back to chapter 13 and move on from there, where it basically talks about freedom. What does it mean to be free? And what is our freedom if we can go everywhere, but we cannot decide to love? Or if we decide to love, we don't make it. We're always angry at people. We don't treat the ones we love well, and so on. So freedom, and then we move to the three angels' message. The judge, where it is about also justice, social justice. And then Babylon, like I said, the whore, it is about what is truth, what is deception in our world. Are we being deceived? And not in a strange political theory way, like the Freemasons, but more in a personal way. Am I deceiving myself? And then the bride, and the final solution of the conflict, peace. What does it mean to have peace, to experience peace? Okay. I mean, I don't expect you to get the storyline just from these few words. It's impossible to tell the whole story because each part is half an hour. But the narrative aspect, I think, also comes through here because for each section we took one story or one image to illustrate our main point. So maybe, I think we should take the time to look at the first episode maybe and see how that ties in. there, except at the end. Here we didn't take our own stories, but we took the stories from the text. So we limited ourselves to the text in the last 2 episodes. We didn't bring an illustration of our own, small ones, but not a general one. And then what the director did, he tried to find a story, very reduced story, that could impersonate or could visualize this story. So, for example, in the first we tell the story of Room, which is a novel by Emma Donoghue about a woman that is being kidnapped and held captive by some sick man, and she is getting pregnant and gives birth to a child, and the book is written from the perspective of the child, and the child only knows this room. His universe is this room. His mother has not told him that there is an outside world and that they are being held captive, but his mother told him we are 2 human beings, outside there is the universe. And so he lives, and it's so funny how she writes it, really brilliant book. So it's always table, door. They have a door, but it's always closed, and he talks about there's no the, because there is only one table. It's not the table, it's table, it's plate, it's television, because he only knows this one item, and he doesn't know that there is much more out there which exists. And we thought this was a good story, because when he turns 5, a leaf, they have one window, but you only see the sky, because it's a roof window, and then there drops a leaf on that window, and he realizes there must be something out there. It's not the universe, because there's a leaf, there must be a tree. He knows trees from television, but television is just made up, it's not real. But then he starts thinking, and his mother has to unlie him, she says. And she tells him the truth, and they decide to escape, and they actually manage in the end to escape. But this, we thought, was a good picture for us humans. We live here on this planet. This is our universe. There's nothing out there. It's just cold and empty space, and we only see our limited perspective. But the Revelation kind of pulls the curtain aside and says, there's more out there. There's a war going on. God is out there. So the Revelation is kind of maybe like a leaf that falls on our roof window. And so this is our story for the first section. And they tried to take this story, this illustration, and visualize it. And I will show you later how it looked. Yeah. And then we have... It would take too long to explain each story that we choose. But maybe you get the idea. So this also is part of what I mean when I say narrative. It's not just that we try to tell a story of 3 protagonists, the dragon, the son, and the woman, and their struggle, and until the struggle is at the end won by God, but also that we try to have kind of like what is it called? This Gleichnis of English. Jesus parable. Jesus is telling parables, kind of like a parable for that. So do you have any comments or questions up to this point? This was basically the first point, our narrative approach to the book of Revelation in theory. I hope we have the time to see it in practice, in action.
What is the difference, story or illustration?
Yeah, you're correct. I use the word illustration for the story. This is the visual story which I will show you. This is what we said, and these are the pictures that were shown. We will get to that, because it was not just us telling, not just the camera on people, but you would also see actors, if you want, like a group from Brazil that was kind of playing some like we had in the beginning of the plenary session this morning. These people coming in and kind of symbolizing it. That's what I mean by illustration. It's the video part, basically. I could change it, maybe then it would be better to understand. Yeah. No questions? Then we move on. So, about that video part, we decided, they decided before we even were part of the project, that they would, in addition to someone speaking, they would have images, clips, and Adrian from Argentina, who is at our media center, he was the one in charge, and together we developed it, but then he was the one who was the director and who went around the world shooting. And they were shooting these clips in 3 locations, Germany, South Africa, and Bolivia, because we tried to make Arnion an international project. So we tried to get more countries involved than just Germany or the German-speaking countries. And so we had help from Hope Channel South Africa and also from, I think, Novo Tempo or Nuevo Tiempo. I always mix them up. What is it in Bolivia? It's Spanish, so it's Novo Tempo?
Novo Tempo is Portuguese.
Okay, so it's Nuevo Tiempo.
Nuevo Tiempo.
Oh, damn. Okay. Anyway, they helped us in Bolivia for the shooting. So and they are also using Arnion right now. I brought you some pictures. This is in Uyuni, in the salt desert, very high, very intense, the sunlight. They said, the actors said at noon they couldn't see very well anymore because, I mean, they were all sunglasses and hiding, but the actors had to stand there and it was so bright, this white, kind of like snow, actually. So, and this is actually the illustration for the first story, for the room story I just told you. You see this woman, and she is kind of in empty space, basically. That is a symbol. She is all alone, There is nothing out there. It's just me, or matter. And then, as the story continues, she discovers that there is more out there. And that's it. So if you expect like an exciting movie with action, that's not what we did. We very reduced pictures which are supposed to give you time to think about what we said. So let's use all the pictures. That is how they tried to get some shade there. They put a tarp between the 2 cars. That would be a story in itself, the shooting, going there, and they had 1 day for one topic, so they had to finish it on that day, no matter what. And they took the driver brought his blanket, and they actually took a lamp from the hotel into the desert, and then they brought it back. So that was exciting. So this is the first episode. This is about the lamp. But it was also in Uyuni. It's at the borders of the salt desert. This landscape is there, and this is where they shot the story for the lamb. It's actually about the question, are you willing to let someone help yourself? Are you willing to give up? And the illustration was Steve Jobs, who refused to have his cancer treated. He just ate some carrots, and then when he finally decided, it was too late. So will you accept the doctor? You see them. This is one of the actors. This is the director. I'm sure. This is the director. This is one of the actors, and this is the camera guy, Daniel. Then also in Uyuni, it's a great place. They have this cemetery for trains, Bahnhofsfriedhof. Just some. Thank you. Ich nehme nur den Laserpointer, oder?
Ja, da musst du ein.
Yeah, okay, good. So I don't know, somewhere in the desert there are just these old trains rotting, and this is where we shot the Babylon story. Babylon is fallen, and we kind of thought this looks perfect. It's like the hope of industrial development just falling to pieces, prosperity, and everything is rusting. Babylon is fallen. So that was also in Uyuni, and then they went to the city for another episode just on poverty and suffering, which was also very difficult because people were approaching them. Don't film the bad parts of town, you know. And so, and the driver who was from Uyuni always said, no, it's okay. You know, the driver actually they laid him on the curb as a kind of homeless person who was sleeping there, and then they were filming him, and someone came and said, don't film that, don't film that. And then the driver said, no, it's okay, we're just... The homeless person was waking up arguing. Yeah. And this is where it ends. Also, this is again the salt desert, from a cave, shot from a cave. Yeah, then they wanted to go to South Africa, but they had to fly through Brazil, and if you want to go from Brazil to South Africa, you have to have a certain vaccination, and they didn't have it. And they tried to explain that they had not stayed in Brazil, but they were just coming into the airport and leaving, but no. So the actors from Brazil went ahead, our camera crew stayed behind, and they gave them a flight to London. You can fly to London without any problems, and then they flew from London to South Africa. And they lost 3 days on airports, and they were behind schedule, arriving at Cape Town, and they shot 4 episodes there. Yeah, one was on the Table Mountain, where this picture is taken here. I don't know which episode it is now. It is Freedom, I guess. Yeah, Freedom. And this was the last day, and they were going to shoot at the beach about the new Earth. Does that look... Do you imagine the new Earth being like that? So that was really a challenge. They were flying out the next day, and they somehow had to... And they did a good job. They kept the ocean out of view mostly. And they were just trying to illustrate this reunion of loved ones and so on the beach, this story. Okay, and then they were shooting... Sorry? Yeah, but also the rain. So they were trying not to have a dark background, because then you see the rain. It turned out well in the end. This is Germany, and they also shot in Germany in 2 locations. One was Frankfurt, a fancy office building, and the other one was an old rundown factory, which was for the second topic. That's right. Okay, now this is also in the factory, one of the 4 actors. And now I would just like to show you a little bit of the first episode, and we will see how much time we take, maybe 15 minutes for that. So you get an idea of what I'm talking about, and then we see if we can learn some lessons from it or not. Yeah, I have to mention, this is in English. Now, my wife and I did it, and we didn't shoot the whole thing in English, just the first episode, so we could explain to people what this is about. So they are going to do a real English one in the UK. They are in the process of shooting or planning to shoot, I don't know. So there will be a English one without accent. But this is just so you get the message and you get the concept. Where is it? Here. Okay, we start right here.
Here's this story of an old rabbi who late at night comes to an Israeli checkpoint. The soldier is upset at being disturbed in his otherwise calm shift, and so he aims his gun at the old man and shouts, "Stop! Who are you? What do you want?" The rabbi hesitated for a moment and then replied, "Son, when does your military service end?" The soldier was staggered, of course, and he lowered his gun. "How is that your business?" he asked. "I would like to hire you," replied the rabbi, "so that you can ask me these two questions every day for the rest of my life." The story might be true or not, but I find it fascinating how the rabbi finds the deeper meaning in these two questions. Who are you and what do you want here? These are basically foundational questions about my life. I mean, could you answer them right away in 2 sentences? What makes me the person I am? At the checkpoint, I can tell the soldier my first and last name and that's it. But does it really say something about me? Who are you? Sven Fockner. A name alone stays empty. Is this everything? Am I not more than that? I could try and say I'm a human being, but this would not be much more specific. There's 7 billion of them. I can walk, think, feel, and speak, okay. But is this everything? Do others know me just because they know what humans are? Am I not unique? At least I feel that way. And the second question, what do you want here on planet Earth? Yeah, what do you want? What do I want? Something, I guess. I mean, don't our lives have to have some meaning? For some, it's maybe finding the love of their life. Maybe for you, it's making your kids happy. Or your meaning could be finding inner peace, or to make the world a better place, at least for some people.
If we discuss this topic with natural scientists, many of them would just shrug their shoulders at our problem. Meaning, destiny, fate, there is no answer to this. They are probably just ideas from our superstitious past. I, for example, I believe in true love, in faithfulness. But my biology teacher always said that marriage just developed to ensure the survival of the human race, given the difficult conditions of reproduction. Our happiness in true love, we imagine it because we were programmed to do so by evolution.
I want to make a difference in people's lives. Therefore, I fight for torture victims through Amnesty International. I write letters, I support them financially, etc. Now, a psychotherapist could detect an unconscious lack of self-confidence behind my selfless service.
Lately, we had a conversation among friends about, is it wrong to tell your kids a half-truth? We were really struggling with this. What is the right thing? But to many ethicists, such discussion is needless. They are convinced that right and wrong are just cultural preferences we were raised with.
Both of us believe that God exists and intervenes in our lives. But recently I read an article in which a scientist explained that belief in the supernatural, in a supernatural power, only exists because religion facilitates human communities. It makes social cooperation easier and more reliable.
somehow everything can be reduced to our childhood experiences, our social conditioning, our prehistoric ancestors, to brainwaves merely. What disillusionment! Life has no special purpose and no higher meaning. We might like the idea of being someone special or achieving something extraordinary, but this is only deception. Who are you? A piece of matter. And what do you want? It doesn't matter, since your brain just follows the laws of nature like everything else. That means we are much less than we fancy ourselves to be. Maybe we just have to get used to.
Or maybe we don't. The book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, paints an entirely different picture of reality. One that is much more in line with our intuitive understanding of life. In a vision, John, one of the 12 closest friends of Jesus, sees a totally different dimension of reality. What he sees appears like a fantastic making of world history. And it emphasizes our lives have not less importance than we assume, but much more than we realize. Our reality, according to Revelation, is part of a cosmic conflict in which we play an important role. The images with which this picture of reality is painted are drastic and original. In one central passage in the book of Revelation, and we will come back to this several times, John sees a kind of nightmare. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because he knows that his time is short. When the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. How does this sound to you? Maybe like a fantasy story, a superhero epic? But let's not be fooled by the pictures used. With this vision, the author wants to describe something absolutely real. A woman, a dragon, a child, Michael, and war. It doesn't matter how much or little we understand about the main characters at this point. One thing is quite obvious. There's a fight going on. In this text, we are placed in the midst of a conflict taking place beyond our perception. We don't know yet why they are fighting, but we cannot be indifferent to this conflict because it affects our planet, the Earth. Gone down to you, filled with fury. Time is short. this possibly be true? I mean, can we even allow ourselves to have such thoughts today, that there is more than what science can measure? I'm a Christian. I believe in God, I trust in the Bible, so I have to agree to this thought. But most of the time I live my life as if the measurable material world is all there is. If I have to make an important decision, I often only see my small limited horizon. And all that matters to me at times like this is to get through life as comfortably as possible. Do you feel the same way sometimes? We often don't realize that behind the scenes a war is being waged. I forget that my life has meaning which extends beyond the maybe 80 years I have. That it matters what we do in life. I know this sounds a bit grand, but it would explain why we as humans all naturally assume to be free and self-determined beings with a longing for meaning in life. Can the book of Revelation really reveal something to us here?
When I was confronted for the first time with this idea that a universal war is going on around us, beyond our perception, I felt like Jack. Jack, the 5-year-old main character in Emma Donohue's novel Room. Jack was born in a room 12 square meters in size. And ever since he has been living there with his mom. Room has a table, a bed, a wardrobe, a TV, a toilet, a stove, a fridge. There is also a door, but Jack has never seen it open. Jack and his mom, they play and sing and run and invent stories. Jack is leading a normal life, at least in his understanding.
So, this is kind of the end then. the last scene. And I think now you understood a little bit what I meant by illustration. So this whole episode is about the fact: is there something out there beyond our scientific worldview? And at first, we kind of paint that picture. The biology teacher, the psychology, the psychotherapist, they all say no, it's just genes, it's matter, it's chemicals, electricity in the brain. That's all there is. And that's when she wakes up in the desert. I didn't even plan it, but Adrian has done a great job, I think. First she looks in the mirror, wonders who am I, what do I want, and then she wakes up and she sees she's in a desert, which is a good image for what a materialist worldview leaves you in. I mean, it's very barren, hopeless perspective on the world. And then at the point where the revelation comes in, you see suddenly other feet, and you see someone walking, and you see, oh, she's not alone. And then at the end she realizes, okay, there's more going on, and we have already that picture painted there of Revelation. I'm not going to say who is the dragon. No, we didn't identify characters, but still, there are other forces, other people out there, and she is kind of confronted with this fact. There is something going on beyond our perception, which is what Revelation is saying. I think, first of all, if you don't agree with that, don't read the book of Revelation. It will not make sense. And we try to say that maybe there could be some truth in the book of Revelation because we all feel that way. We all feel like we are free, and we all feel like we really love, and like we really decide, and like there's really good and evil, and we act every day in our decision making like it was that way. And the Revelation would give us the meta perspective to that, in contrast to maybe natural science. comments, questions at this point before we move into the lessons that we can maybe draw from that? So if you think of traditional revelation presentations, seminars, this is kind of something different, I guess. And some say this is not the book of Revelation. What does this have to do with Revelation? But when thinking about it, I've come to the conclusion that I would stand up and argue that it has a lot to do with Revelation, maybe more than the identification of the 7 seals. Because to understand the book and grasp its message, I think such foundational topics are very important. And if you come away from the reading of the book of Revelation with this understanding, there's a great controversy, and I have to decide. I think the author would say I have reached my goal. But that's just my perspective. Where's my mouse? Oh, I leave that player there because I wanted to show you something else which is cool. This is also part of...
Hvem du egentlig? Og hva vil du her på jorda? Og hvis du vet det, hvem bryr seg?
Den siste boken i Bibelen viser oss at det er helt avgjørende hva du vil her. Den gir oss et glimt av hva livet virkelig dreier seg om. Livet for alle mennesker.
Livet handler om mer enn du aner.
Hope Channels nye serie om Johannes' åpenbaring.
So this was Norwegian. And one last thing.
Tarde da noite, rabino, ele chega a posto de controle israelense. O soldado ele fica irritado por estar sendo incomodado, ele mira sua alma para o Senhor e grita: Pai, quem é você? O que você quer aqui? O rabino ele hesita por...
You can see how Brazilians are different than Germans, you know? There's much more going on here. Yeah, so they did it in Brazil. They did it actually with 3 people. Let's see.
Por momento.
Vivência em sociedade. Mas como Caleb, eu ajudo pessoas em suas necessidades físicas, sociais e...
As imagens aqui retratadas ou descobertas por João, elas são dramáticas e originais. E lá no ponto central do livro do Apocalipse, João ele tem tipo um pesadelo.
Vamos esquecer de que à
noite alguém vem e traz comida. Mas o que ele não sabe é que essa pessoa é um criminoso.
Okay. So I just wanted to show you this because we designed the project as an international project. That's why the people never talk. so you can use it in any language, and you just take 2 people in front of a black screen, or 3 people, or whoever, and they just present their version of the script. And so in Norway they are broadcasting it, I think, in the middle of February. In Brazil they have already finished everything. I don't know if they already broadcasted it. England, Great Britain has also been a part of this, also financially. They have not yet started recording for some reason, and then there will be French and Spanish done by the Inter-American Division, Mexico and all of that, I think. And this week I received an email from Romania. So Adrian Boca, yeah, they want to do it too in Romania. So that is great, because
Italy is missing.
What's wrong with Italy?
We are going to write.
Okay. I mean, the good thing is that you can, you don't have to subtitle it or translate it. You just take your own speakers, and they can also adjust the stories if they want, so it fits in with the culture, which I think is important. If we are trying to tell stories, we have to tell stories that relate to the audience, and not take German stories to everywhere in the world. So it will be exciting at the end to see how the different countries have worked with this project. Okay, now lessons for youth ministry. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not claiming that I will present to you the ultimate solution for every problem, or even one problem. But what I'm going to present to you has helped me in my work. I'm developing programs, courses for television and for kind of distance learning for our Bible correspondence school. And we work a lot with video now, because on the internet people don't want to read anymore. Yeah. So the first lesson that I would kind of take away from my Anion experience is that when you're trying to communicate the gospel to young people, do it in a narrative way. That means, to me, if you have to present something, seek the story. What is the story in this? What is going on there? Don't just present facts or information, but try to find a story. And I mean, a lot of things, I will give you an example later, but it doesn't mean make up or force onto it a story, and it doesn't mean that everything you do has to be a narrative, half a narrative, but stories do capture the audience. And I mean, this was very reduced storytelling in Anion, the images, it's just that she realizes there's someone else in the desert, that's all. But we use a lot of stories also. And stories move, and stories offer the possibility of identification for the listener. I can identify with this situation, with this person, with this character. And that is actually why movies preach so efficiently. I think that the greatest preachers in our time are probably the directors or the producers of the big movies. I mean, how many people have talked about environmental problems and care, And James Cameron, he comes along with Avatar, and he has this world, and suddenly everyone is feeling it. You feel threatened by the industry who is destroying everyone knew the rainforest is being destroyed, right? But James Cameron does Avatar, and you're in love with the jungle, for some reason, this strange lit up place at night, and you want to fight again, and everyone identifies with the indigenous people suddenly, No one identified with the people in the Amazon area, but he tells this story, and he captures the audience. I don't know if it changed everything, if it changed anything, but my feeling was, when I watched this movie, that it moved people more than maybe an information campaign by Greenpeace. or whatever. You take a lot of movies. Who's preaching about the end of the world? Roland Emmerich. I don't know if you know him. A German guy who does 2012 was this one movie. Then The Day After Tomorrow, with the ice everywhere. He's the preacher about the end of the world these days. The last thing, it was the White House, which got destroyed. It was not the end of the world. Maybe for Americans, but for the rest of us, it was just a house. Yeah. So, I just read an interview with Angelina Jolie and her movie about this prisoner that is in theaters now. I forgot the name. And she's trying to convey a message. She is on a mission that you have to bring the best out in yourself, and that you have to fight for what you believe and stand up and suffer if necessary, and so on. So she's also preaching a message by telling the story. And I think Ralf could tell us something about the Stewa in Bayern, where they have like the whole. It's a Pathfinder camp, and they have the whole thing with a story. It was the Exodus last year. And the kids are part of this story. They get red food right one morning or suddenly because it has turned to blood, and they have the locusts, the animals in the camp, and so on. So and that's how the whole. It's not just someone preaching about the Exodus, but it was actually a story for the whole weekend. No, 5 days something, right? Yeah. So I think that has a lot of power, conveying a message through a story. And we have the greatest story, actually, as Christians, as Adventists, in the Bible, but we present it often in a very boring way. We present it like it was some recipe or something, which you need to follow, not in an engaging way. I still believe that there is room for theory. I have an MA in systematic theology. Of course, I still believe that there is room for theory and for instruction and for understanding. I'm not just telling stories. I also have worked on a course where people are taught how to read the Bible for themselves. Okay, we did videos for teaching them, but it's not storytelling. I'm not saying everything has to be story, but I think this is an important tool for working with young people and for proclaiming the gospel. Make it narrative. The second thing I would say is make it subjective. And I don't mean subjectivism, I don't mean relativism, so it doesn't matter what you say and you're supposed to preach that everything is equal. But I mean by subjective, give your message from a personal perspective. Tell it from a personal perspective. When I started as a pastor, I thought preaching or communicating the gospel, whatever you call it, I thought preaching was proclaiming the truth. And I knew the truth, and my task was to tell the other people, give them the information, what the truth is. Now, 10 years later, I realize I have had new insights. I have learned stuff I didn't know before. I know better in some areas. I know better now. And so I got to think then, what about the truth I proclaimed 10 years ago? Was it present truth? We have this Adventist concept. Maybe we can use that. So for me, preaching is not, here's the truth and I bring it to you, but for me, preaching is more like a testimony of my personal spiritual journey. This is what I'm thinking now. This is what I'm reading now. This is how I understand it. And maybe some people might be uncomfortable with the idea of being subjective. I mean, then it's just one opinion among others. But I mean, if you thought that your audience thinks that your opinion is the truth, then you're probably wrong anyway, So I think it doesn't make the gospel small or of less importance, but it's just a more authentic way. And people can relate to that much more if you tell about yourself and your spiritual journey instead of proclaiming the truth as it is, which is then an abstract concept. Yeah, I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think here's an example. In the past, the great evangelists like Dwight Nelson or Mark Finlay, they have told a lot of stories, but rarely have they talked about themselves. I read some of these scripts of Net 98 and of all these things that went on in that 96, 98, and in Germany we had 2000 and so on. And they told a lot of stories about the world as it is, about other people, about lessons we can learn, but they didn't open up. They had good stories. They illustrated the point. They moved people maybe to tears, but it wasn't really about themselves. You couldn't really grab or get a hold of Dwight Nelson in Net 98. It was not really from his heart, maybe. And then I found this, I would have to jump, because Dwight Nelson had another sermon in 2011. I don't know if you saw that picture. It was at the annual council of the General Conference. And at one point he said, "Sermon notes end." And then he was speaking about himself. And I assume that he was being honest. I don't want to suggest... I don't believe that he was just putting on a show, but he was speaking about himself and how he himself was envious of Mark Finlay, the two big evangelists, and suddenly everyone was paying attention. You can watch the video online. The room was like totally quiet, and then he confessed and he opened up and he said, "This is a sermon for me too. I'm preaching to myself. I have to confess to you, Mark, I'm sorry," and so on. And then they hugged and so on. And that was, I mean, I talked to people who were there. That was a defining moment of that whole meeting. It changed all the discussion and all the struggles for decisions afterwards. That Mark Finlay, Dwight Nelson, at that point opened up. And so it's not just youth. At the General Conference there aren't many young people. So it also works for old people or middle-aged people, for everyone. So, and I found this quote by Henry Nouwen, and he says, "I am deeply convinced that the Christian leader of the future is called to be completely irrelevant and to stand in this world with nothing to offer but his or her own vulnerable self." We can discuss what he means by irrelevant. He's coming from the Temptations, 3 Temptations of Jesus. And that is the book, In the Name of Jesus, Christian Leadership, something like that. But I like this thought, nothing to offer but his or her own vulnerable self. So it's not about how much you know, how much you've studied, about the truth that you have memorized, that is the 28 fundamental beliefs, but they want to know about you. Subjective narrative is now turned upside down. So we are at the subjective point at the moment. Right? Offer yourself, your own vulnerable self. I think that is very important in youth ministry. But I mean, you probably know that. So it's not the smart answers, not the charismatic speakers. But those who dare make themselves vulnerable. And that is so hard, at least for I don't know, maybe it's not hard for you pastors, but we did this worship, we recorded a worship service here. This is a screenshot of the Emmanuel project. And we had testimonies. And there was this young lady, she studied film and script writing, and she was kind of the architect and the director of the whole worship service. And she designed the setting and the schedule, how everything worked together. And we gave her our notes, what we wanted to say, and she said, "Why is it so hard for pastors to just talk about themselves and not preach?" And she sent it back to us with 1 page of suggestions. So Bernhard and I were the ones, and also Fabian Meyer. And in the end, I think we made it, but it's not easy. It's not easy. You come up with something that you think is important for the other people, but it's not important for you. Yeah. And that is what we tried in Anion. We did not, if you go to Mark Finlay or Dwight Nelson, they would, or anyone, Matthias Müller was a German evangelist, and they would give you facts about, earthquakes are increasing and hunger and people are dying and so on. Facts about the world, when you talk about suffering on this planet. And in Anion, we tried not so much to talk about the world, but we shared the experience my experience of sitting in the office and clicking through some images, some award-winning journalists with the images, and then there's this small child on the side of a picture, and she's just looking in the camera, and she looks so sad in a war zone somewhere, and how suddenly the weight of the whole world kind of crushes on you out of that picture. So that is a personal story, about a personal experience, and I think that has much more, people can relate to that much more than to statistics, how bad the world is. Or even pictures about suffering children. Yeah. All right. I mean, of course, subjectivity can be misunderstood, and it can be a danger. I'm not saying that we should be unsure or timid about what we have to say. This is just, maybe the gospel is good, but who knows? I tend to think it. No. We can proclaim with conviction, but still from a personal perspective. That's the point. Yeah. I think these are the two main things, narrative and subjective. I think this is important for youth ministry. I have 2 more. Yeah, we can start discussing. Yeah.
I'm just thinking this as a product then.
Yeah.
Series 10.
Mm-hmm.
I was interested that you said something about UK Britain involvement, and I'm wondering who that is and what's happening, what their plans are.
Mm-hmm.
But how would it be used? You said that some places have already broadcast it.
Yeah.
There's a planning to use it, maybe doing the translating, filming bit, and editing that. That's great. Okay, there's a product.
Yeah.
How does someone use it?
Okay. I will come to that. I'll just finish my 2 points about youth ministry, and then we can come back to the series, if that's okay. Yeah. So the next thing is a focus or condensed. I call it condensed before. I think if you're telling a story, don't attempt too much. I mean, often we come up with these great allegorical versions of reality, and it gets very complex. Okay, this character is Satan, this character is Jesus, she is the... people talked to me after they saw it, and they said, at first I thought she was the bride, the church, but then I saw she had painted fingernails and jewelry, so she has to be the whore. So people always want to identify, and it gets very complex. No, it's just there's a human being who realizes, I'm not alone in this universe. That's it. And I think if you tell a story, don't attempt too much. Focus on one point. I think Jesus does that in his parables all the time. We try to make a lot of every detail. There is this sheep. They know that they are lost. The coin does not know that it's lost. The son even comes back himself. It's true, but I doubt whether Jesus intended such details. I think there is a main point, and if you focus, on that point, then you're getting your message across. And don't lose yourself in detail. I mean, it's fun to tell stories, people laugh and so on, but if you get lost, then in the end they say, what was this story about? I mean, it was funny. His experience maybe there, and a lot of details about this and that. So I would say focus on one single point, one most important point. And the last I put in here because I come from the media center. I think that visual storytelling will become, or is already and will become, more and more important. And this is not something for the individual pastor in his church, unless you have if you have young people and a camera, they can do amazing things these days. Even if they just have a smartphone, and they shoot and they edit and they broadcast for your church maybe. So my experience is that young people love movies, love visual storytelling, and they also love to do it. So we have now started working with the young people you see with the blue shirts, the 1 Year for Jesus crew who helps out here, and they come to our media center, 6 of them each week, and we train them, and they are all excited about that. So I think that the youth people, youth pastors, youth directors, and the media people of the church, they need to collaborate a lot more. We need to come together, because I think in youth ministry, if we get good visual storytelling, it will have a lot of impact. So this is just a personal opinion, not something that you have to write down or so. But I think that also personal ministries, the mission departments, they also need to come together with the youth and with the media experts to work on this. That at least is my hope. Okay, now we come to the questions. The first question was, how can you use it, this series? I mean, in the UK, I think it was Victor Halbert who was doing the production, and now it's kind of switching. He's not anymore in charge. But how can you use it? You could simply take it for Hope Channel. This is one option. But you can also, at the moment, we are working on question sheets for small groups or youth groups. We want to have them finished by Easter in German. I think the Brazilians have much more. So they have already, I think they have T-shirt and the campaign, and I don't know, they do everything big. But I think our experience is that people, because we condensed it and we reduced the stories to one point, that they start discussing afterwards. We did it with the youth group, or with in Bavaria, in North Bavaria, Nuremberg, with the people who are from that area, and they, after we shared with them the first 4 episodes, we were preaching live. So we showed the clip, then we jumped and preached, and then we showed the clip, and so and there was really a discussion going on. So I don't think that you necessarily need some questions, but you could just watch it, and the discussion, I think, will follow. I don't know, unless your youth group is just all quiet all the time. But I would suggest that this is a way. Some people in the Stimme have also tried it in their youth groups, the material, and it worked well. So young audiences really received it well. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question. So once what we give to the UK, what we give to everyone, it's basically the Premiere files, or the Adobe Premiere files, and then they can do whatever they want with it. And we give them also the English scripts, so they can translate it into their language and adapt it. And whether they broadcast it or whether they distribute it on DVD, I think they do that in Brazil. and they use it for youth gatherings. That is up to the country then. But I think in an age of high-speed internet, we don't need DVDs. We can just download it, share it. And of course, part of the package will be that I think it's a 4-page question reflection sheet for each episode. So you can use it for youth meetings. Yeah. Other comments, questions, criticism, additions? I mean, you are all experts. You have experience. Would you see some wisdom in this, or would you like to add, or do you think, well, but this is maybe not so good?
At the time we were studying Revelation,
Mm-hmm.
we use books, and we are always discussing to put more details inside, more information.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I think it's too much, and you don't get the point of it. And then, I think it's a good idea just to watch a videos, and then discover it afterwards. Just for
I think you often lose the real picture, why it matters. I mean, why does it matter that whether I know what this symbol means or not? I'm not saying that we shouldn't study this, not at all. But you study this and it doesn't change anything in your life. It doesn't bring you closer to Jesus or anything. It just gives you more information. Confirms you maybe in what you have already believed. I don't know. Yeah.
What I understood from thinking or reading about postmodern people, there are no longer any meta stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you, with your series, you tell a meta story.
Yes, absolutely. We try to, but of course, we present it in a humble, subjective way. We suggest. Our argument was not, there are Bible prophecies and they have all fulfilled, and so this is true. Our argument was, doesn't it make more sense? So, yeah. So we are very careful. Yeah. I think people want to have a meta story. I think they long for it, for meaning. Who am I and what do I want here? What is the bigger picture? Because it's very depressing if there's no purpose, and I have to make up the purpose for my own life all by myself, and I have to give meaning to my life. But of course, no one trusts the meta stories that are there anymore. But people they choose Buddhism or any mixture of meta stories for themselves. And this is what my wife's sister, she's not in the church. She has a very, she says she believes in God, but it's very mixed up. She has made up her own meta story. And so our approach was, well, if you want a meta story, this one makes sense to me. So I cannot prove it to you. No one ever could, but we tried to prove it in the past, and now we say, okay, I think this will help your desire, the desire in your heart. I think that's also a phrase we use. The longing we have for meaning. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if we use that exact sentence, but that is the idea. So, this makes much more sense to me. I have the feeling that I love. I act for Amnesty International. I really do that. I didn't say it just as an example. So, but why? Because I think there's right and wrong, and I think people deserve to be treated equally. And so if there is a God, if there was a God, and if there was an opponent, then this would make sense. And if I was a creature made by God in His image, we don't go into all that details. We just say, if there is a big struggle, then there is two sides. There is a good side, a bad side. And then we have to decide, and so on. Oh, we are already over time. That's why you're all so quiet. Let us get out of here. Okay, well, sorry. I thought we would be finished in time easily. What did I say? Okay.